I did. I read 1L.
I read 1L as well.
I think the general consensus at Harvard is that it's now like a nicer place and less competitive, and I think that that's probably true. I think 1L's still like pretty stressful and pretty intense, but it's not cutthroat. I always felt like I was never worried about like competing against my like classmates. I was worried about like doing the best I could and like if anything not looking like an idiot in front of my like classmates. It wasn't as if I was trying. I don't think anyone was trying to like undermine anyone else. It felt pretty supportive.
I thought 1L was a good read, but I did not think it was particularly like reflective of my experience. I think it was a much more collaborative. I don't know, like not like in terms of like having study groups and things, but I always kind of felt like from 1L it seemed like it was kind of like everyone against the professors, and here it seemed more like everyone against 1L basically.
For what it's worth, I think people give Kagan a lot of credit for sort of like changing the atmosphere and dynamic at the law school. And having not been here while she was here, it's hard for me to speak to it, but I imagine there's probably a lot of truth to that. And people cite sort of like small things, like the installation of the volleyball court, or like the 1L sections where you have like a section leader who like helps put together like events, and there are funds to sort of set up little like section parties or whatever. I think those things, even if they're small, go a long way to sort of setting the tone for the school.
Even just having like 7 sections instead of what it used to be like 4 or 5 with like 120 people in them. And I think to some extent, I think the people have changed. Obviously, you know, like the Harvard Law School of 1L days was in every way a much less diverse Harvard Law School. And also, kind of what I was saying earlier, I think that people's understanding of what is useful and valuable as far as training lawyers has changed. People's understanding of why you go to law school has changed. And I just think that like the 1L kind of like methodology, their Socratic method still happens, and there's still cold calling.
You're in a group of people that you don't really know, and you're worried about how you're perceived, and like you don't want to be called on and not know what's going on. Versus the last week, you're just kind of like, I'm ready to be done with this and don't really care.
Personal experience, I think it's a lot harder to keep caring about the same things as much after first year in terms of grades and like, for me at least, a major motivating factor as a 1L, like I didn't want to look like an idiot, and I didn't want to look like an asshole. Like it was like making that balance of like, I know what I'm talking about, but I'm not like, trying to show off how much I know what I'm talking about all the time. I think it was actually like really helpful in terms of like keeping me focused and like trying to learn stuff and make sure I knew what was going on. And then after 1L year, it's like everyone disperses, and quite frankly, like I don't know anyone in most of my classes except for like, Mike and Sarah were some of my classes. So like I don't really know people in the classes. I don't really care as much about what someone thinks about me. Like I don't know if I would attribute already having a job 100% to it. I think that if there was still, I'd feel a lot more pressure if I didn't have job options. But I think, and different people will respond to this differently, but honestly, I think for me, I knew 1L was going to be a big deal, and I'd heard a lot about how hard it was and stressful, and like I was really happy with how I did 1L, and I was kind of like, well, check that box. Like I can handle this place.
Yeah.
I can do it. I don't need to go through that again just to prove to myself that I can do it again.
Yeah, I do think coming in, I felt like I kind of had something to prove. Like maybe I wasn't as academically focused. I certainly wasn't as academically focused in college, and here's a chance to sort of like to see what you can do. And so I think that was a motivator for me, at least the first year.